Hello, everyone. Give us a moment. We're going to be starting just about 30 seconds or so because I want to talk about something that I think is very important. And by the title, I think you can see it is an important issue that criminals are being sent door to door by Democratic candidates and the Democratic Party. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by this. So, without much more ado, let's get into this. I just wanted to give a few seconds for people to see this. I know it's a little bit later. It's Friday, November 1st. And 12 hours ago, I had made a very quick thoughts video, and I had posted that, and you can see it on YouTube, you can see it on Facebook. Basically, what I had said in there was that you could, I had spoken a little bit about the fact that there are a bunch of Democrats or a bunch of individuals working for the Democratic Party that were very questionable, very surprising. This is shocking news. Quite honestly, this is shocking news. I didn't even realize this until I got around and was doing the research. Because, as many people know, I've been doing a lot of research on a gentleman by the name of Dan Livingston. Dan Livingston is a candidate for the the city of Binghamton City Council. And I've covered him a lot over the last couple of months because of his ethics violations that he's made, the fact that he's currently under investigation, and that he won't tell his constituents anything about that. And I think that's a very big deal. In fact, whether it was a Republican, a Democrat, a conservative, a libertarian, if anyone was under investigation at the same time that they're running for an elected office, the public needs to know about this. That's transparency. And that's something that needs to be up front and center. So when I was looking at that, the first question I had to ask myself was, how could the Democratic Party of Broome County, of New York, allow a candidate to run for office who is under active investigation for ethics violations? I mean, that's a pretty big question there. And it's a question that Mr. Dan Livingston, who admitted to the ethics violations on October 21st, and we have video and we have shown that already in the program previously. When you have a candidate who's admitted to these ethics violations, you have to say to yourself, well, what's going on here? What really is happening? And what's this party doing? Now, the chairwoman of the Democratic Party, Bridget Kane, has mentioned that she wanted to make change, that she wanted to change the direction of the Democratic Party. And we know that the DNC chairman, Tom Perez, has said that he wants to turn the Democratic Party more into democratic socialists, like his very favorite and his ideal, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And you have to ask yourself, what does that really mean? What does that really mean? And I was wondering that. And I had to ask, so what is the Democratic Party doing in the southern tier of New York and very likely in other parts of the state? And I came up with something that was very interesting. This is all public information, so I want people to be very clear about what I'm talking about. This is public. This is not something that was private. This isn't something you can't find for yourself. And what I found was the filing, just before an election, every party has to file where it's putting its money. And candidates have to do the same. So I decided to look through that public document. And it's something that anyone can do, and you can do it yourself. And the documents I got on October 31st. Okay? And I was looking through the filing, and I found some very interesting things. Because the Democratic Party, every party's making payments, of course, and I'm not holding that against them, of course. But who were they paying? Now, there's a lot of names on this list. There's a lot of people you could look at and say, well, who is it? What's the big deal? But there's a name here, Lauren Wilson. I want you to think about this for a second. It's Lauren Wilson and Yodit White, Brendan Walsh, and Eric Getz. Now, when you think of those names, doesn't really mean a lot to most people. I think most people are going to go, so what? Who are those guys? Who cares? Well, they're people who are being paid by the Democratic Party to go door to door to try and promote their Democratic candidates. Fine, that's fair. Except I want to know, if this guy showed up at your door, how safe would you feel? How secure would you feel? Again, if this guy, Messiah Andrews, showed up at your door, would you feel like that's a candidate you want to vote for? Would you feel pressured that you have to tell him that you're going to vote for a certain candidate? Would you feel like they're watching your vote and that they're using intimidation tactics because this guy showed up at your door? And again, who is Messiah? Messiah Andrews is a member of Plot. He is a member who was arrested recently for disrupting the public. He was also an individual who I personally have heard him in a Plot meeting, the only one they allowed me to get into, where he says that he believes in destroying the property of, if you're renting, to destroy the property of the renter, the landlord, because that is an expression of anti-slavery. Those were his words. But this man, Messiah Andrews, is definitely a member of Plot, and he definitely was arrested for disturbing the peace on Columbus Day. And if he showed up at your door, I don't think you'd feel very safe. I don't think you'd feel very secure. Well, guess what? He's not the only one. These are all members, individuals, who were with the Democratic Party going door to door for candidates like Angela Riley and Dan Livingston and the other Democrats in Broome County. Lauren Wilson, who was arrested on 4 counts of possession and intent to sell cocaine, as well as several other charges. And Eric M. Goetz, who on Facebook goes by Erickson Goetz. I'd give you a better Facebook picture of him, which is public, except he doesn't have one. And you're going to say to me, Mike, I don't think that's such a big deal. I don't understand it. Come on, give me some idea of why this is a big deal. And you know what? I am. Because when I say that these individuals did this thing, this is Lauren Wilson. This is an article from the Press and Sun online, and it was published on January 25th of 2017. And this is them describing Lauren Wilson, who is on several federal felony counts for drugs, selling drugs. And Ms. Wilson is being paid by the Democratic Party several times. In September, she was paid $112.50. She was paid again on October 10th, $120. And I believe she was paid, and again on October 15th, she was paid $105. So this is something that you got to wonder about. She's being paid a lot of money. What's she getting paid for? Why is the Democratic Party hiring someone? And I don't know, she may be innocent. She may have been acquitted of, I forget exactly how many charges she had there. But to my knowledge, she had, I believe it was 4, 7, 10 counts. 10 felony counts against her. And she was going out for the Democratic Party, and she was pushing Democratic candidates. If you were a Democrat, would you want someone who had 10 felony accounts for drug dealing to be at your door, possibly talking to your children? Would you feel safe? Does that make sense to you? Shouldn't that be a little bit more transparent? Would you expect a little bit more from the Democratic Party for that? Okay. You're saying, well, Mike, that's only one person. Well, I want you to remember, I mentioned another name on that list. Okay? And I want you to remember it because I had spoken about Mr. Brendan Walsh. He's another fun guy. He's another wonderful member that was hired by the Democratic Party, presumably Democratic committee members. And he was paid, in particular, on October 10th, $45. And he was paid again on October 15th, another $15. So he's not the big high earner of the party. But then again, Mr. Walsh, according to the New York Times, If you don't think that's a credible source, I don't know what is a credible source. According to the New York Times, on February 21st of 2005, Mr. Walsh was cited by the New York Times because in April 9th of 2003, he tried to toss a Molotov cocktail into the Army station in Vestal, New York. That's attempted arson. He was convicted of this crime. According to the New York Times, Brendan Walsh, then 20, an anti-war activist and apparently a progressive at the time, they called it vandalism at the time, and that was in 2003. By February 11th, he was convicted and had to serve 5 years in federal prison. By the way, if they actually, at 20, they're being very nice and lenient to him, I assume that was his first offense, because if he had gotten charged with arson, any degree of arson in the 5th degree, the 4th degree, the 3rd degree, the 2nd degree, the 1st degree, they're all felony counts. Every single one of them. And it's bad enough that that would mean he could not vote if he got the felonies. It means that he can't be part of the party. But it seems he's good enough to be paid by the party. And that's not to say that was his only incident. That was the only thing he's ever been arrested for. It's not. But I'm going by what the New York Times has reported, because the New York Times is, well, credible. I know Democrats quote it like a Bible. So I'm very concerned. Would you like to have an arsonist show up at your house to talk to you? Would you feel safe knowing that an arsonist is being paid to go to your door? I would be very concerned about that. I would be very concerned about my children being around an arsonist. You may disagree. Let me ask you. You're saying, well, Mike, that's 2 of these people. You mentioned a few other names here. How can we be sure you're talking about this? Well, I want to be very clear about another one of the sources. Again, I'm sourcing this. This isn't just me making this up. Okay, this is from Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York. On October 6th of 2005 comes the article about the Broome County Grand Jury indicts 7 people on drug charges. And let's look at the names of the people that we're talking about. In particular, it's Yodit White, who at the time was 22, of Endicott. Again, maybe she was found completely innocent of this. In the United States, we assume that people are innocent until proven guilty. And I have not said that they have been convicted, except for, Brendan Walsh, who was convicted of arson. But would you want someone who's been indicted? And it was there were a total of 52 counts. 52 counts in the indictments that were being charged out there. There are felonies being charged here. That's what we're looking at. Individuals facing felonies. They're working for the Democratic Party of Broome County. They're being paid by the Democratic Party of Broome County. That concerns me. I think that would concern most people. And I'm sorry that I'm getting this out late, but I had to go to work. But I wasn't going to let this go. And I want people to look at this and ask the question, is that representing Democrats? Do the middle of the road Democrats, those who are not progressives, who are not socialists, who don't want to be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they don't want to be like Masai Andrews and be members of Plot. They don't want to go around disrupting other people's lives, trying to intimidate them and force them into beliefs that they may not have. Do you, as a moderate Democrat, believe that? Do you think that's a positive thing? To have an arsonist, people with drug felonies, arrests, possibly felonies. I know everyone deserves a second chance. I give you that. But these are concerns. And in this name of transparency, something that Mr. Dan Livingston loves to champion and talk about, shouldn't we know that? Shouldn't the Democratic Party tell its members, its rank and file people, the people who are answering their doors, that they have possible felons answering their doors, drug dealers answering their doors? Shouldn't they be told that? And how are these people doing their job? I don't know. Now, I also mentioned another person here, and I want to be as clear as I can because I showed his image. And again, we're talking about Eric M. Goetz now. I believe it's this gentleman in the white with the black hair, but I can't be sure. But Mr. Goetz, he's very proud of what he's done. And you can see it on his Facebook page. Please look it up. Because on October 15th, he's talking about how he had been arrested. And this one's really interesting to me because he's talking about how he got arrested, which may or may not be his first arrest. I don't know. I wasn't able to find out for sure. But what I am able to find out for sure is that Mr. Getz, and I think that's how he pronounces his name, is saying that, well, it's not really disturbing the peace. He was only disturbing it for a little while. So it's only a little bit of a crime. He was only kind of sort of short-term disturbing the peace. So he shouldn't be arrested for that because that's racist. That's what he says in his words here. You can go on Facebook, you can see it for yourself. That's why I'm putting this source up here. He happens to have the same belief as Messiah Andrews, who was also arrested. Now let me ask you, do you think that someone who's willing to go out and disturb the peace, to actively break the law, and will call people racist when he gets caught breaking the law, do you want that person knocking on your door? Do you think that person has a very good moral center? Do you think that person has a good judgment of what is right and wrong? When they think that breaking the law a little bit is not the same as breaking the law all the way. It's not, just because I broke a little bit of the law doesn't mean I should be held accountable. That's what Mr. Goetz is saying. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's the right thing? And by the way, if you happen to wonder, Mr. Getz, after he was arrested on the 15th, he got paid beforehand. On October 10th, he was paid by the Democratic Committee of Broome County. He was paid $15. On the 15th, and this is the thing that gets me, on the 15th of October, when he gets arrested, he gets paid $270. What did Mr. Getz, who admits that he committed a crime, who was arrested for the crime, why did the Democratic Party pay him $270 on the day he got arrested? What did he do that he got paid $270 by the Democratic Party when he's being arrested actively by the police? And then when he's getting arraigned, which I believe was on the 21st, he got paid another $180 by the Democratic Party. $180 was paid to him at the time that he was being arraigned for his crime, which he has since admitted. Or actually, on the 15th, he admitted he did it. He broke the law just a little. Broke the law just a little. Are these the kind of people? Is this what the Democratic Party stands for? Is this what they believe in? Is this what voters believe in? Because we know that candidates have standing with this, and we know that some of the candidates, like this is Mr. Getz. Mr. Getz was out getting signatures for several of the candidates for the Democratic Party. In particular, one of them that he was getting them for happened to be a candidate of name. Where is it? Let me bring this up for you because I want you to see this. Angela Riley, someone who supports Plot. Now, let me ask you, and this is, again, a public document. I'm not revealing anything that is not public information, but it is information that the Democratic Party is not willing to tell voters. This is information that they're not willing to let voters know about until, well, probably never. And the rest of the news media didn't think it's important to tell voters that the Democratic Party is willing to put people who at the very least have been arrested, if not convicted, for felony distribution of drugs and drug dealing and arson and disturbing the peace. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe those things make me feel uncomfortable to know that someone who is an arsonist could possibly be at my front door. That someone who's been arrested on 10 counts of distribution of cocaine and intent to sell cocaine, poisoning children, is at my door. That someone who's willing to break the law and thinks that they should not be responsible. They shouldn't be held responsible for actively breaking the law and admitting they broke the law, that person's going to be at my door. And I suddenly understand why the Democratic Party of the Southern Tier doesn't really have a problem with Dan Livingston, who's under an ethics investigation. Suddenly I understand why they're more than willing to support this guy. Because, compared to the other crimes, he's not that bad. He's already been convicted of stealing in California. That is a fact. But more importantly, his his ethics violations in November of 2018, of January of 2019, and again up to this day, seems to be nothing wrong with that, according to the Democratic Party of Bridget Kane, who runs the Democratic Party. She seems to have no problem with that. This is all in the name of progressivism and socialism. So it's okay for Angela Riley, for Dan Livingston, for the candidates running for the city council of Binghamton. And I have to ask you, because if I'm seeing this here, I am sure that if I looked at other cities across New York, the bluest of blue states, where progressivism and socialism are trying to take root, that they would have no problem finding. I would have no problem finding, if I had the time and the resources, to find other individuals in other cities. So if it's happening here, it's probably happening where you are too. And I have to ask you, is this what you believe the future of America should be? Are these the future leaders that you want to see in charge? People who are willing to employ criminals, or at least alleged criminals in some of these cases, to go out and I guess if they're like Messiah Andrews, intimidate the public, to pressure people to vote. I don't know. I tend to hold a pretty high bar on these things. And maybe it's just me. And if you're wondering, gee, Mike, but you said this guy, Eric Goetz and Messiah, you said they're arrested. How can you say that? Because I didn't say it. It was reported by the Press and Sun. Protesters arrested at Columbus Day Parade. And there is a reaction, of course. But they name it Messiah Andrews, Eric M. Goetz, Sham al-Din Yazin, and Jordan P. Halen. Maybe I got those names wrong. So no, I'm not saying that they're criminals because I'm just making that up. It's not because it's partisan or party has to do with my political beliefs. It has to do with the fact that they were arrested. And that at least some of them are openly admitting that they broke the law and don't think they should be held accountable. What do you think if they're backing people like Angela Riley, they're backing people like Salka and also Aviva Freeman, Dan Livingston, possibly John Burns, I'm not sure who's backing him. When they're looking at these candidates, these Democratic candidates for the city council, I have to ask you, if they think, if these members of Plot, if these progressives and socialists, these individuals willing to break the law, are willing to back these candidates, what does it say about those candidates? Now, you may not agree with me. You don't have to, but you should know. Why wouldn't the Democratic Party let people know this? Why is the left-leaning media not willing to tell you this? To let you know so that you can make the choice, so that you can ask these candidates, why do they employ these people? Why do they support these people? What do they really believe? Why is this okay? If any of these individuals that I had shown you on the list and the many, many others, I didn't have the time and to research every single one of them. These are the ones that came up the most for me. But let me ask you, what if some of them were pedophiles? Would you say it's still okay? What if some of them were still actively dealing drugs? What if they were involved with domestic abuse? What if there were other charges that these people are doing and they're still actively doing them? Would that be okay to be at your door? Would you invite those people into your home? Is it intimidating? What is that really saying about the Democratic Party? What's that saying about the candidates who I assume know the background of the people they have working for them? I would assume that Angela Riley and Bridget Kane and Aviva Freeman and Dan Livingston, that they know that they're employing individuals who have at least been arrested and some of them convicted of felony crimes, and they have them going out door to door. I have to believe that. Otherwise, they're incompetent and they don't know the people they're employing, which is dangerous because if they get elected, what are they going to do then? Who would they employ to get your sensitive information, to learn information about how much money you make, where you live, where your kids are? Some people may say, Mike, this is very partisan. I don't think so. I think this is very important. I think this is very real. I think this is something that deserves the transparency that we hear some of these guys talking about when some of these other guys are out there trying to intimidate people. That's what I think. I think people deserve to know that. I think people deserve to be able to make the choice with all the information in front of them. And I think this is important. I think you should ask these candidates. I think you should ask the Democratic Party. What do they really believe in? What do they really stand for? Who are they really trying to take care of? You? Convicted felons? Alleged drug dealers? Who? Who are they really trying to support? And who are they paying? Again, I have to ask. I hope the Democratic Party will be able to answer this. Why did you pay Eric Goetz $270 when he got arrested? I'm very curious about that. What did he do besides get arrested? Or did they pay him for his breaking the law, his disturbing the peace? Did they pay him because he was a member of Plot? And if the Democratic Party is willing to pay a member of Plot to break the law, what are they going to do if they get a majority, if they get elected officials? What are they willing to pay members of Plot to do next? That's a really serious question. Again, let me end this with let me say this again and end it because I've said it a couple times here. I cannot find and do not have time if every one of these crimes were convicted, except for Brendan Walsh, who was convicted according to New York Times. We know several of these people are under, currently, Eric Goetz, Masai Andrews. We know that they're currently going to see their day in court. They may or may not win. Everyone is presumed innocent. That doesn't change the fact that transparency doesn't exist, and it calls into question both what the New York Democratic Party is willing to do to win and what they're going to do if they win. These are questions you should ask before you go and make your vote. And before you make an early vote, I hope you've had a chance to find out more and ask questions before you give away your vote without having all the facts. But I look forward to hearing all of your comments. You tell me what you think. Is it a big deal? Does it matter to you if convicted felons come to your door? Does it matter if convicted felons support and actively are being paid by a political party? Does that make a difference to you? Because I know it would to me, but I wonder, would it make a difference to you? Well, hopefully, if you've enjoyed this, do check it out. I look forward to seeing your comments on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. And until the next time, I hope everyone's going to be well. I'm going to be coming up with an article about Beto O'Rourke. You know I'm not going to forget about that. And don't forget, I will be on Larry Sharp on the Sharp Way on Monday, October 4th. I believe it's at 8 o'clock. It'll be on YouTube as well. I'll be on his show in New York City, so please do check that out. And until the next time, I hope everyone will be well, and I look forward to talking to you soon.